Happy Easter, brothers and sisters. I'm not a week off. We celebrated Easter last Sunday, but what a gift it is in this Catholic family of ours, in our beautiful Catholic Church, that we're just getting started. While the secular world around us is putting away the Easter bunnies and the Easter eggs and the candy and so on and so forth, we're just dipping our foot into Easter. We have about 30 or so days ahead of us to rejoice in that Easter spirit. But no, actually, we have all year to do that. I think the church in her wisdom keeps us going for about a month or so focused on Easter so that we might get into the rhythm and carry the joys of Easter along the way every day of our life, because don't we need it in this world that we live in? And you know, St. John Paul II in his wisdom gave us the Divine Mercy Sunday based on the visions of and the writings of St. Faustina. When you think of Divine Mercy, what comes to mind, of course, is the beautiful painting that was directed by St. Faustina, and we see our blessed Lord, he looks like he's offering an invitation, and we see rays of red and bluish white coming out of him and going off into the distance. Red symbolizing his blood that was spilled for us, the other symbolizing the water that came from his side. And we think of infinite mercy because this is what Jesus promised, infinite mercy that can be tapped into endlessly by his children, by his friends, by his family here in this room and around the world. Then at the bottom, it says something very important, and that's our response to Jesus' invitation to mercy. Jesus, I trust in you. How beautiful. It's an invitation to the joys of Easter the year round. It's an invitation to engage in church. And certainly today, when we look at this gospel reading, it's so fitting that these go together, because this gospel reading seems to be an invitation to enter into church. Now, there's all sorts of ways we could reflect on this gospel. There is so much to unpack, but just to sort of stick to this theme for a moment, we see that when the apostles first saw Jesus, they were in church. They were the church at that point, and they were gathered in an upper room. Jesus came in and revealed himself to them, and they saw the risen Lord. They had great joy over it. You have to imagine how they felt. They were broken. They were scared. They had just lost their friend. They had just lost their leader. They had just lost Jesus, or so they thought. They were afraid of perhaps even being persecuted or crucified themselves. They had all this on their mind, so they were frightened by the goings-on in the world. Sound familiar? Here they are in a locked room, trying to be protected, and Jesus enters into that room anyway. He passes through the roadblocks and the locks and the closed doors that sometimes come up around us and made himself present to his apostles. And then he told them, "Peace be with you." How beautiful. Not peace, man, not the peace that we might think of every once in a while, whatever the case. No, shalom, the blessings of God. Every blessing, every goodness that comes from God is a gift upon you. This is what Jesus wished his apostles. This was a game changer. They go from fear, sorrow, and grief to joy and rejoicing and happiness, because they have seen the risen Christ and he has offered the blessings of God upon them. It's amazing what happens when you wind up in church, isn't it? Thomas is often referred to as Doubting Thomas, and it's sort of cute and funny, but it's not entirely accurate. I don't think it really tells the full story of one of our first founders of the church, St. Thomas. St. Thomas cared about his faith enough that he wanted to be convinced. He wanted to be assured that Christ had risen. He wanted to know the truth. And when you look at different accounts of Thomas in the Gospels and so forth, he wasn't afraid to stand up and ask a hard question. So there are a lot of wonderful qualities about him, but he missed out on that first gathering. It doesn't tell us why. For whatever reason, he wasn't there. But the second time he was, and here they were all together again, locked away. And they had told Thomas all of the things that happened, and as we know famously, he said, "Well, I'm going to have to see proof." And then Jesus appears to him again and says, "Peace be with you, shalom." Here in church, he encountered Thomas and the apostles again. He gave them hope, strength, and faith to carry out their mission. He showed them the hopes that they have to look forward to in the resurrection. How beautiful. Certainly this should all sound familiar because, brothers and sisters, in this world that we live in, we all are facing a challenge. We all are facing pain. We're facing brokenness. We're facing illness. We're facing the loss of loved ones. We're facing so many things, just like our founders in that room. And Jesus is waiting for us to enter in together, to come to him, to respond to the invitation of divine mercy and receive the joy and the peace that can only come from him. You know, when we enter our church this morning, we hopefully put our hand in the font and renew our baptismal vows, remind ourselves of that. At this special time of the year, we do the sprinkling rite as we did this morning. Doesn't that beautiful rite with those living waters being sprinkled on us or being put upon us as we make the sign of the cross remind us of that water flowing from Jesus' side in the divine mercy, offering us everlasting, the opportunity, the invitation to everlasting life? And when we see the blood coming from his side in that beautiful painting, doesn't it remind us of the cup that we are offered when we come to Mass? Jesus is waiting here for us in a more intimate way than he was with the apostles in that upper room, brothers and sisters, because he waits for us in the Eucharist to be taken into our own bodies in the most intimate and special way. How beautiful, what an invitation. And as we come forward, we see the crucifix. Now ours is a little happier than the typical crucifix, but we still see the wounds of Christ. We see the holes in the hands and the feet. As we approach those, may we think of our own wounds and our own brokenness and know that Jesus took that to the cross. As we approach and receive communion today, may we put those at the altar. May we leave them there at the foot of the cross, the pain and the suffering that we walk through that door with, and encounter Christ in a beautiful way. And what a beautiful time to do this on Divine Mercy Sunday. As we do this, may we believe. Jesus told Thomas, "Better those who have not seen and believed." So we may not see Jesus in full body here today, standing, talking to us and touching us, but we will receive him in the most intimate of ways, as we said, in the most beautiful ways in the Holy Eucharist, the real presence of Christ in the room. May we not see and believe just the same. And may we say, as Divine Mercy encourages us to, "Jesus, I trust in you." And more importantly, as Thomas proclaimed, "My Lord and my God." Amen.